The year was 2087, and Earth had changed a lot. People lived on Mars now, and big companies dug for metals and minerals in the asteroid belt. Humans had come far, but they were about to go much further. It started on a normal Tuesday at NASA headquarters. Lisa Morgan was drinking her third cup of coffee when the alert came in. She almost spilled the hot liquid all over her desk. "Someone better look at this," she called to her team, eyes fixed on her screen. "We're picking up signals from beyond Pluto." Within hours, every news channel on Earth showed the same headline: "Are we not alone?" Scientists worked day and night to understand the signals. They were clearly artificial, too regular, too precise to be natural. After 2 weeks of global debate, NASA decided to send their newest and fastest ship, the Intrepid, to investigate. Captain Alan Brooks received the mission briefing in his office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. "This could be the most important journey in human history," said the NASA director. "Or it could be nothing. Either way, we need our best people out." "There," Alan nodded. At 45, he had gray at his temples, but still stood tall and fit. He had flown 3 Mars missions and commanded the first crewed mission to Jupiter's moons. This would be his biggest challenge yet. "I want Diane Wilcox as my chief engineer," he said. "And Peter Grayson for communications." The director nodded. "Already assigned to you. You leave in 3 days." The Intrepid used the newest fusion drives, making the journey to the edge of the solar system in just 4 months, rather than the years it would have taken earlier ships. The crew of 12 stayed busy, running drills and preparing for every possible first contact scenario they could imagine. "What do you think we'll find?" Peter asked Diane one evening in the ship's small dining area. Peter was tall and thin with kind eyes behind round glasses. At 32, he was the youngest senior officer but already the world's top expert in theoretical alien languages. Diane shrugged. She was short with strong hands and short brown hair. Probably a probe from another civilization, maybe dead for centuries. "You're such an optimist," Peter said with a smile. "I'm an engineer. I deal in reality." Captain Brooks joined them, sitting down with his meal tray. "Whatever's out there, we represent all of humanity now. We need to be careful, curious, and cautious in that order." When they finally reached the source of the signals, everyone fell silent. On the main screen was not a small probe, but an enormous ship at least 3 miles long. It was smooth and silver with strange patterns etched across its surface that seemed to shift and move when you looked at them too long. "My God," whispered Alan. "Open a channel, all frequencies." For 3 tense days, they sent greetings in every format they could think of: mathematical sequences, simple pictures, radio waves, laser pulses. The alien ship remained silent, though it had clearly changed course to move closer to them. Then, on the 4th day, a voice came through their speakers. It spoke perfect English. "Greetings, travelers from Earth. We are the Zorathi. We have been observing your civilization and believe you are ready to join us among the stars." The crew looked at each other in shock. Peter recovered first. "How do you know our language?" he asked. "We have monitored your transmissions for many years," the voice replied. "We find your species fascinating. So young, yet so resourceful." Over. The next week, the Intrepid crew learned more about the Zorathi. They were an ancient species who claimed to lead something called the Galactic Collective, a group of civilizations that shared knowledge and resources. The Zorathi appeared on video calls as tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They moved with grace and spoke with calm authority. They explained they had helped many young civilizations advance and offered to do the same for Earth. "We can share technology that will end your energy problems," said the Zorathi leader, who called himself Ambassador Zinn. "We can help you travel between stars and cure your diseases." Captain Brooks remained careful. "And what do you want in return?" "Only friendship and the unique perspective your species can bring to our collective," Zinn replied. "Each civilization offers something special. Yours has remarkable creativity and adaptability." The Intrepid sent all this information back to Earth, where governments and corporations quickly became excited about the possibilities. The United Nations called an emergency session and voted to welcome the Zorathy with open arms. Only Victoria Mason, America's top diplomat, felt uneasy. She had spent her life reading between lines of treaties and agreements, finding hidden meanings in careful words. Something about the Zorathy's perfect speeches bothered her. "They're too perfect," she told her assistant Greg. "Their answers come too quickly. It's like they've rehearsed this many times before." Greg shrugged. "Maybe they have." "Maybe they've met lots of species like us," Victoria frowned. "That's what worries me." When the Zorathy ship entered Earth orbit 3 months later, millions watched in awe. Smaller vessels landed in major cities around the world. The aliens established embassies and began meeting with scientists, business leaders, and government officials. They brought gifts, medical devices that could detect diseases before symptoms appeared, solar panels 3 times more efficient than Earth's best technology, and seeds that could grow in desert soil with minimal water. Their most impressive offering, however, was what they called neural enhancement technology, small devices placed behind the ear that connected directly to the human brain. "These will help you interface with our technology," Ambassador Zinn explained at the United Nations. "They will also allow you to learn our language and communicate more effectively with all species in the collective." The first volunteers to receive the implants were scientists and diplomats. They reported amazing results: enhanced memory, faster learning, and the ability to understand the Zorathy language instantly. Companies began offering bonuses to employees who got implants. Universities gave scholarships within 6 months. Millions of people around the world had the small devices attached to their skulls. Victoria Mason refused. Despite pressure from the president himself, she insisted on doing her job the old-fashioned way. She noticed small changes in her colleagues who received implants. They became more supportive of Zorathy suggestions, less likely to question or disagree. Late one night, Victoria received a visit from an old friend, Dr. Richard Barnes from the CDC. He looked nervous and kept glancing around her apartment. "I've been examining the brain scans of implant recipients," he whispered, though they were alone. "There are strange patterns forming, neural pathways I can't explain." Victoria felt a chill. "What are you saying, Richard?" "I'm saying these aren't just translators or learning aids." His hands trembled slightly. "I think they're changing how people think, subtly, gradually." Before he could explain more, Richard's phone buzzed. He checked it and his face went pale. "I have to go. They're monitoring me." "Be careful who you trust, Victoria." He hurried to the door, then turned back. "And whatever you do, don't get an implant." After he left, Victoria stood at her window looking out at the Zorathy embassy glowing in the distance. Their ships had brought hope and excitement to humanity. But now she wondered if they had brought something else too. Something hidden beneath all their perfect words and amazing gifts. She picked up her secure phone and began making calls. If something was wrong, she would need help to figure it out. And she would need to be very, very careful. 6 months had passed since the Zorathy first offered their neural implants to humanity. Now, over 30% of people on Earth had the small devices attached behind their ears. The changes were subtle at first. People with implants seemed happier, more focused, and incredibly productive. They learned new skills in days instead of months. They rarely argued or complained. Victoria Mason noticed these changes during meetings at the State Department. Her colleagues with implants always agreed with Zorathy proposals. When she raised questions, they looked at her with mild confusion, as if they couldn't understand why anyone would doubt the aliens' good intentions. One rainy evening, Victoria met her old college friend, Dr. Olivia Reeves, at a small cafe far from any government buildings. Olivia was a top neuroscientist who had also refused the implant. "Thanks for coming," Victoria said quietly. "I needed to talk to someone who still thinks for themselves." Olivia looked tired. Her curly hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and dark circles showed under her eyes. "It's getting worse. The hospital where I work is offering double pay for staff who get implants. Those who refuse are being pushed out." Victoria nodded. "Same at State. Did you see the news about the new Zorathi technology centers they're building? One in every major city. Recruitment centers is more like it, Olivia muttered. She leaned forward. Listen, I've been running some tests in my private lab. I got brain tissue samples from a car crash victim who had an implant. What I found? She shook her head. The implant had created new neural pathways, especially in areas related to decision-making and emotional responses. Victoria felt her stomach tighten. Mind control? Not exactly. More like ... influence. The pathways all show increased activity when receiving certain frequencies. Frequencies the Zorathi technology constantly emits. Victoria told Olivia about Dr. Barnes from the CDC, who had disappeared the day after their conversation. His apartment had been emptied, and his office claimed he had taken a special assignment with the Zorathi. We need more help, Victoria said. People with different skills. That's how they found Kyle Bennett. Kyle worked in cybersecurity and had been fired for refusing an implant. He met them in the basement of an old library that had closed due to budget cuts. I've been tracking the data traffic between implants and Zorathi ships, Kyle said. He was a big man with a thick beard and gentle eyes. He showed them his laptop screen filled with scrolling code. It's not just receiving signals. The implants are sending data back constantly. What kind of data? Olivia asked. Brain activity, thought patterns, emotional responses. Everything that makes a person. A person, the three of them formed. The core of what would become the resistance. They called themselves Free Mind and began reaching out to others who had refused implants. They used old technology paper notes and flip phones that couldn't connect to the internet to avoid detection. Kyle set up a secure lab in the basement of his uncle's old farmhouse outside the city. There, they captured and analyzed the signals being sent between implants and Zorathi ships. Look at this pattern, Kyle said one night, pointing to his screen. It spikes whenever implanted people face decisions or feel strong emotions. Olivia nodded. They're harvesting our decision-making processes, but why? Victoria had been reading old science fiction books, looking for ideas. What if the Zorathi can't think like us? What if they need our brains for something their own? Minds can't do? Their breakthrough came when Kyle managed to hack into a low-level Zorathi communication channel. Most of the data was encrypted, but they found some unprotected files, historical records about other planets. My God, Victoria whispered as they read through the translated text. They've done this before, dozens of times. The files showed a clear pattern. The Zorathi would arrive at a developing world, offer technology and assistance, introduce neural implants, and then gradually take control of the planet's resources and population. They valued creative species with strong problem-solving abilities. They're not conquerors in the traditional sense, Kyle said. They delectors. They collect minds. Olivia pointed to another section of text. Look here, they've already started building Phase 2 implants. These won't just influence people. They'll completely override free will. Victoria felt cold fear wash over her. How much time do we have, based on their timeline with other worlds? Maybe a year before they start the full takeover. They needed to warn people, but when Victoria tried to meet with senior government officials, she found all of them had already received special, enhanced implants. Her old boss, the Secretary of State, listened to her concerns with a pleasant smile that never reached his eyes. Victoria, you're overworked and paranoid, he said. The Zorathi are our friends. Why don't you take some time off? And please, consider getting an implant. It would help your career tremendously. That night, Victoria found her apartment had been searched. Her computer was gone, along with all her notes. She grabbed her emergency bag and left through the back exit just as black SUVs pulled up outside her building. She met Kyle and Olivia at their backup location, an abandoned subway maintenance tunnel. Kyle had brought a young woman with him. She had short blonde hair and wore a maintenance worker's uniform. This is Samantha, Kyle said. She works at the new Zorathi Technology Center. And she has some very interesting information. Samantha looked nervous but determined. I've been assigned to the implant storage facility. They're bringing in millions more. And I've seen the new models. They're different, bigger, more complex. Phase 2, Olivia said quietly. Samantha nodded. They're planning something big in about 8 months. They call it the full integration. All humans with implants will be upgraded simultaneously. Victoria looked at her small team of neuroscientists, a computer expert, and now a brave insider. It wasn't much against an alien species with technology, far beyond Earth's, but they had something the Zorathi might not expect, the human spirit of resistance. We need to build a network, Victoria said. Find others who are still free. And we need to understand exactly how these implants work so we can stop them. Kyle opened his laptop. I've been mapping potential resistance members. People who've refused implants and gone off the grid. There are more than you might think. We'll need safe houses, secure communication methods, and medical facilities, Olivia added. Victoria nodded. And we need to get someone on that ship. We need to know what they're really planning. As they talked into the night, planning humanity's resistance, none of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the ventilation grate, silently recording everything they said. The Zorathi were already watching. 2 years had passed since the Zorathi arrived on Earth. Now they controlled most of the world's governments, military forces, and big companies. About 60% of all people had implants. Those without them found life getting harder each day. Many jobs would only hire people with implants. Some stores wouldn't serve customers without them. Children with implants went to better schools. The free mind resistance had grown from just Victoria, Kyle, and Olivia to thousands of people working in small groups around the world. They had bases hidden in old mines, abandoned buildings, and even underwater facilities built in secret. They had a base on Mars too, hidden in a canyon where the Zorathi rarely looked. Victoria sat in their main base, an old nuclear bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains. Maps and screens covered the walls. People worked at computers or trained in the makeshift gym. Everyone looked tired but determined. The Denver group rescued 15 people last night, said Kyle, pointing to a map. His beard was longer now, and he had a scar across his cheek from a close call with Zorathi security. All of them were scheduled for forced implantation, Victoria nodded. Lately, the Zorathi had stopped pretending the implants were voluntary. Any problems? None. They used the jammers, worked perfectly. The jammers were one of their best weapons. Diane Wilcox, who had escaped from the Intrepid before getting an implant, had created devices that could temporarily block the signals between implants and Zorathi control systems. When activated, people with implants would become confused for a few minutes, giving resistance teams time to act. Olivia entered the room looking excited. She carried a tablet with brain scans on the screen. We've made progress with the deprogramming, she said. The last group we rescued, their implants are now completely disconnected from Zorathi control. This was their other major victory. They had learned how to safely remove the influence of implants without removing the devices themselves. This was important because physically removing implants caused brain damage. Instead, they reprogrammed them to stop sending data to the Zorathi while still appearing to function normally. How many people can we process per day? Victoria asked. About 20 with our current equipment, Olivia replied. We need more medical supplies. Kyle pointed to another location on the map. The Colorado Springs Hospital is getting a shipment tomorrow night. We could intercept it, Victoria nodded. Make it happen. Later that day, Diane Wilcox asked to meet with the leadership team. She had been working on something big for months, rarely leaving her lab. She looked pale from lack of sunlight, but her eyes were bright with excitement. I've figured out how the implants maintain connection with the Zorathi control systems, she said, showing them a complex diagram. They use quantum entanglement particles linked across space. That's why our jammers only work temporarily. Can you break the connection permanently? Victoria asked. Diane smiled. Better. I think I can reverse it. Send our own signals back through their system. The room went quiet as everyone understood what this meant. Instead of just blocking the Zorathi control, they might be able to fight back directly. Meanwhile, the resistance had discovered another advantage. Even people with implants could still resist in small ways. The implants controlled logical thinking, but had trouble with creative, emotional, or metaphorical thought. This was probably because the Zorathi themselves didn't think that way. People began communicating in ways the Zorathi couldn't understand, using old song lyrics, movie references, or inside jokes to pass messages. A resistance member might say, "The weather reminds me of that day in Chicago," to signal danger. Or, "My mother's apple pie was always too sweet," to identify another resistance member, the Zorathi. Monitoring all communications couldn't detect these hidden meanings because they relied on shared human experiences and emotions the aliens didn't understand. The resistance launched Operation Trojan based on this weakness. They allowed some of their members to receive modified implants, ones that Diane had altered to look normal but that actually remained under human control. These brave volunteers then took jobs in Zorathi facilities, gathering information and sabotaging equipment while appearing to be loyal implanted workers. One of these volunteers was Ben Cooper, a former Navy SEAL. He had worked his way up to a security position at the main Zorathi communication center in what used to be New York City. One night, he managed to access their central database. "You need to see this," Ben said during his weekly secret transmission to the resistance base. His voice sounded strained. "I found their plans for Phase 2. It's worse than we thought." The resistance leadership gathered around the secure communication terminal. Ben sent files showing detailed plans for what the Zorathi called complete neural integration. "They're not just controlling people," Victoria said as she read through the documents. "They're planning to use human brains as biological computers." Olivia looked horrified. "They want to network all implanted humans into one massive computing system. Individual consciousness would be suppressed." "When?" Kyle asked. "6 months from now," Ben replied. "They call it the alignment. All implants will be upgraded simultaneously." After Ben's transmission ended, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Victoria stood up. "We need to step up our timeline," she said. "Diane, how close are you to reversing the quantum connection?" "I need more time, maybe 3 months." "You have 1 month," Victoria said. "Kyle, I want all resistance cells worldwide to increase rescue operations. Priority on scientists, doctors, and engineers who can help us." Kyle nodded. "What about the Mars base?" "Tell them to prepare for refugees if Earth falls," Victoria replied, her face grim, "and to continue the fight if we fail." The next few weeks were the busiest in the Resistance's history. They rescued hundreds of people from implantation centers. They stole medical supplies and technology from Zorathi facilities. They set up new jammers around major cities to disrupt Zorathi control temporarily, and in her lab, Diane worked day and night on the quantum reversal system, testing and refining her ideas. One morning, after working for 36 hours straight, she called Victoria on the secure line. "I've got it," she said simply. "Come to the lab." When Victoria arrived, Diane showed her a small device about the size of a shoebox. "This can reverse the quantum connection," Diane explained. "Instead of them controlling our implants, we can send signals back through their network." "What kind of signals?" Diane smiled, though she looked exhausted. "That's the beautiful part. We need to create something their system can't process, something uniquely human." Victoria looked at the device, feeling hope for the first time in months. "How do we deliver it?" "We need to get this to their main control ship in orbit. Their whole network connects there," Victoria nodded slowly. "Then we need to get someone on that ship." As she left the lab, Victoria knew they were approaching the most dangerous part of their mission. The Zorathi were powerful and controlled most of Earth, but they had never faced human determination like this before. And they were about to learn that trying to control humanity was the biggest mistake they could have made. Getting someone onto the Zorathi command ship would not be easy. The ship stayed in orbit around Earth, and only special shuttles could reach it. These shuttles only carried high-ranking officials and important supplies. All were carefully checked by both human security with implants and Zorathi guards. Victoria called a meeting of the resistance leadership to plan their mission. They gathered in a small room deep in their mountain base. Maps of shuttle launch sites covered one wall. Pictures of the Zorathi ship from powerful telescopes covered another. "We have 3 possible ways to get on that ship," Victoria said, pointing to the maps. "All of them dangerous." Kyle nodded. "The most direct way is to capture a shuttle during launch. But security is extremely tight. What about getting someone already on the inside to help us?" asked Olivia, one of our Trojan operatives. Victoria shook her head. "None of them have shuttle access. The Zorathi only allow people with special enhanced implants to board shuttles." Diane, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What if we don't need to send a person? What if we just need to send the device?" Everyone looked at her. She continued, "We could hide it in a supply shipment. The quantum reversal would still work." "But someone would need to activate it once it's on board," Kyle pointed out. "Not necessarily," Diane replied. "I can set it to activate automatically. But we would lose the ability to control exactly what gets sent through the quantum connection." They debated the options for hours. Finally, they settled on a bold plan. They would use both approaches. They would hide Diane's device in a supply shipment and also get a person on board to ensure it worked properly, and to gather intelligence about the Zorathi's central systems. The person who volunteered for this most dangerous mission was Ben Cooper, their Trojan operative who already worked in Zorathi security. "I can get approved for the enhanced implant," Ben told them over the secure line. "My supervisor has recommended me for promotion to shuttle security." Victoria didn't like risking their best inside source, but Ben insisted. "No one else can do this," he said. "And time is running out." Meanwhile, Diane and Olivia worked on the most important part of their plan, what to send through the quantum connection once they reversed it. They needed something that would disrupt the Zorathi control system without harming the humans connected to it. "The Zorathi think very differently from us," Olivia explained to Victoria. "From what we've learned, they have a hive mind structure. They cannot handle contradiction or paradox. Their thinking requires perfect logical consistency. And humans?" Olivia smiled. "We live with contradiction every day. We can hold opposite ideas in our minds at the same time. We can feel love and hate for the same person. We understand metaphors, jokes, and sarcasm. Our brains process emotions and logic together." Diane added, "So we're creating an algorithm based on human neural patterns. Something that embraces contradiction and operates on emotional logic as well as rational processing. We're calling it the human algorithm," Olivia said. "When introduced to a system that requires perfect logical consistency, it should create cascading failures," Diane finished. Victoria looked at the complex equations on their screens. "Will it hurt the people with implants?" "It shouldn't," Olivia assured her. "Human brains already work this way naturally. The implants are trying to suppress these patterns, but our algorithm should actually feel familiar to human minds." The plan moved forward quickly. Ben received his enhanced implant, which Olivia had secretly modified beforehand to protect his mind. While appearing normal to Zorathi scans, he was assigned to shuttle security and began learning the routines and systems of the command ship. Diane finished the quantum reversal device and disguised it as a standard power regulator. The Resistance had a contact in the supply chain who agreed to include it in the next shipment to the command ship. 3 days before the scheduled shuttle trip, Victoria received an urgent message from another Trojan operative working in a Zorathi communication center. "They've moved up the timeline for the alignment," the message read. "It's happening in 5 days, not 6 months. All implanted humans will undergo final integration simultaneously." Victoria immediately called an emergency meeting. "We have to move now. The supply shipment with Diane's device leaves tomorrow. Ben goes up the day after. The alignment happens 2 days later." "Why did they move up the timeline?" Kyle asked. "Maybe they detected some of our activities," Olivia suggested. "Or they've finished their preparations early." "Either way, we have no choice," Victoria said. "All Resistance cells worldwide need to be ready. When the human algorithm activates, there will be confusion. We need to help as many people as possible during that time. Kyle began sending encrypted messages to resistance groups around the world. They would position themselves near hospitals, schools, and public places to help implanted people who might be affected when the Zorathi system crashed. The next day, they watched nervously as the supply shuttle launched from a Zorathi facility in Arizona. Their contact confirmed that Diane's device was on board, hidden among power regulators and other technical equipment. "First step complete," Victoria said, checking it off their list. "Now we wait for Ben." Ben's shuttle was scheduled to leave early the next morning. Just after midnight, they received a brief message from him. "All good. See you on the other side." Hours later, they tracked his shuttle as it left Earth's atmosphere and approached the massive Zorathi command ship. Through powerful telescopes, they watched the tiny shuttle dock with the enormous alien vessel. "He's in," Kyle said. Everyone in the command center cheered quietly. Now they could only wait. Ben would need time to locate the device in the supply area and ensure it was properly positioned near the ship's main systems. If everything went according to plan, he would activate it just before the alignment began. Diane sat at her computer, monitoring the quantum connection. "Once he activates the device, I should be able to detect the reversal. Then we can upload the human algorithm." Victoria looked around at her team. They had been fighting for years against an enemy with vastly superior technology. Now everything depended on one brave man and a box of complex electronics on an alien ship thousands of miles above Earth. What if this doesn't work? Kyle asked quietly. Victoria took a deep breath. "Then the Mars base continues the fight? But this will work? It has to?" Olivia nodded. "The Zorathi think they understand humans because they've studied us. But they've missed the most important thing about our species." "What's that?" Kyle asked. "We're unpredictable," Olivia replied. "We're messy and contradictory and creative in ways they can't comprehend. They see those qualities as weaknesses to be controlled." Victoria finished the thought. "But those are actually our greatest strengths. And they're about to learn that the hard way." 24 hours later, just as resistance teams worldwide moved into position, Diane's computer began beeping rapidly. She rushed to check the readings, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's happening," she said. "The quantum connection is reversing. Ben did it." Victoria moved quickly to her side. "Upload the human algorithm, now." The human algorithm began uploading to the Zorathi network. On screens around the resistance base, they watched as the complex code flowed through the reversed quantum connection. It would take about 10 minutes to complete the upload. "All resistance teams are in position," Kyle reported, looking at his communications panel. Teams waited near hospitals and public places around the world, ready to help when the implants failed. Victoria turned to Olivia. "What exactly will happen when the algorithm hits their system?" "We can't be sure," Olivia replied honestly. "Their system is built on perfect logical consistency. Our algorithm contains human paradoxes, emotional reasoning, metaphors, jokes, dreams, poetry, things they can't process. It should create a cascade of errors. And the people with implants? They should experience temporary confusion as the implants shut down. Their natural brain functions will take over again." The upload bar reached 100%. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The room was completely silent. Then alarms began blaring. The satellite feeds showed strange flashes of light from the Zorathi command ship. "Something's happening," Diane said, staring at her monitors. "The quantum connection is becoming unstable." On screens showing major cities, they could see people with implants stopping in the middle of streets. Some put their hands to their heads in confusion. Others looked around as if waking from a deep sleep. "It's working," Victoria whispered. Suddenly, a new communication came in. It was Ben, transmitting from the Zorathi ship. "The aliens are in chaos," his voice crackled. "Through the speakers. Their central system is failing. You should see this. They're moving erratically, making strange sounds. It's like they can't handle the input." "What about the human crew members?" Victoria asked. The ones with enhanced implants passed out when the algorithm hit. They're starting to wake up now, looking confused, but okay. Can you get to a shuttle and escape? Kyle asked. There was a pause. Negative. Security systems are locking down all exits. But I'll keep transmitting as long as I can. Around the world, resistance teams sprang into action. They used their jammers to create safe zones where they could help implanted people as they woke. From Zorathy control? In hospitals, doctors prepared to treat anyone suffering negative effects from the implant shutdown. On the main screen, they could see the Zorathy command ship. Parts of it were going dark. Other sections glowed with unusual patterns of light. Look! Diane pointed to smaller shapes detaching from the main ship. Some of their vessels are leaving. They watched as several Zorathy ships broke away from the command vessel and accelerated away from Earth. Others seemed to be drifting aimlessly. They're running away, Kyle said with disbelief in his voice. Or their ships are malfunctioning, Diane suggested. The human algorithm might be affecting their navigation systems too. The resistance base erupted in cheers. Victoria felt tears in her eyes but held up her hand for quiet. We're not done yet. We need reports from around the world. And we need to help everyone affected by this. Reports began coming in from resistance. Cells globally. The pattern was the same everywhere: implanted humans experiencing confusion followed by what looked like awakening. The Zorathy on the ground were either fleeing to their ships or collapsing entirely. Ben's voice came through again, weaker this time. You need to see this. I've reached their central control room. The Zorathy leaders, they're actually... His transmission cut off in static. Ben, Victoria called, but there was no response. For the next few hours, they worked non-stop, coordinating relief efforts worldwide. The good news was that most people with implants were recovering well. Their minds seemed intact, though many were disoriented and had no memory of things they had done while under Zorathy influence. 3 days later, Victoria stood before the remaining members of the United Nations. Most of the delegates had been implanted, but now they were free again. They looked tired and haunted by what had happened. The Zorathy have been driven from Earth, Victoria reported. Their remaining ships have left our solar system. From what we can tell, their entire network has collapsed. What about their technology? One delegate asked. The implants that millions of people still have in their heads? Olivia stepped forward. The implants are now harmless. They've disconnected from the Zorathy network permanently. We're developing ways to safely remove them for those who want that, but there's no immediate danger. And the Zorathy themselves? Will they return? Victoria shook her head. We don't think so. From what Ben reported before we lost contact and from data we've gathered since, the human algorithm didn't just disrupt their control system. It fundamentally changed their collective consciousness. Changed how? Another delegate asked. The Zorathy operated as a hive mind that required perfect consistency, Victoria explained. Our algorithm introduced them to human-style thinking with all its contradictions, emotions, and creativity. Some Zorathy ships self-destructed, others fled. Some may have adapted in ways we don't yet understand. In the weeks that followed, humanity began rebuilding. Without the Zorathy influence, governments reformed. People who had been controlled started the long process of healing and understanding what had happened to them. The resistance base became the headquarters for a new organization called the Solar System Defense Initiative. Their job was to study Zorathy technology, develop Earth's defenses, and watch for any signs of the aliens returning. 1 month after the Zorathy retreat, a small shuttle appeared near Mars orbit. It was badly damaged, but managed to send a message before crash landing on the planet's surface. A rescue team found a single survivor inside Ben Cooper. When he recovered enough to speak, he told them what he had seen in the Zorathy control room. When the human algorithm hit their system, the Zorathy leaders didn't just malfunction. He said they began to change. Some fractured into individual entities no longer part of the hive mind. Others seemed to gain new awareness, almost like they were waking up for the first time. So we didn't destroy them, Victoria said. We freed them from their own rigid thinking, Ben nodded weakly. Some couldn't handle it and self-destructed, others fled. But a few they were different. Before I escaped, one of them spoke to me. It said, "We did not understand what we were taking from you." Freedom is ... chaotic but valuable, Victoria smiled. Maybe someday they'll return as friends rather than conquerors. 6 months later, Captain Alan Brooks, one of the first to be freed from implant control, led a special mission. Using adapted Zorathi technology, his ship prepared to venture beyond our solar system. Their goal was to contact other species who might have been subjugated by the Zorathi to offer help and form new alliances. As the ship prepared to depart, Victoria stood with Olivia, Kyle, and Diane at the launch observation deck. They watched the sleek vessel rise toward the stars. "Do you think there are others out there like us?" Olivia asked. "Species who fought back? I hope so," Victoria replied. "But even if we're the first, we won't be the last." The Zorathi thought our messy, contradictory thinking was a weakness to be controlled. Instead, it was our greatest strength, Kyle finished. Diane smiled as the ship disappeared into the bright blue sky. "They tried to control humanity. But we outsmarted them all," Victoria completed the thought. Watching humanity's first true interstellar vessel carry their hopes toward distant stars.